I didn't know someone could live in your house without you knowing. Not until I found the crawlspace panel open and realized it hadn't been that way yesterday. My parents had gone out of town for 4 days. I'm 19. College didn't work out, so I've been back home working at a hardware store, taking care of the house while they do their little Airbnb getaway thing. Pretty normal deal. Water the plants, bring the bins in, and keep the doors locked. I was in our 2-story house in the suburbs. Just me. I actually liked it. I think that's part of why this happened, because I got too comfortable. It started with the back door being unlocked on the second morning. I always lock it. I know I do. But I also forget things. So I told myself it was just one of those dumb slips. I chalked it up to habit blindness and locked it again. Nothing stolen. Nothing weird. The next day, it was a light on in the downstairs bathroom. I hadn't been in that room all day. Again, could have been me. My mind loves playing maybe I forgot with stuff like that. But by the third night, I started to feel watched. That kind of low simmer tension where the house just feels too quiet. Like it's pausing with you, listening. Here's the thing. We have this crawlspace access panel in the laundry room. It's a square plywood hatch behind the dryer that leads to the narrow guts of the house. Insulation, pipes, and spiders. My dad built it himself when he rewired something years ago and left it unfinished. So it's just a dark little wood box that leads into more darkness. I never open it. I've never had to. Until I walked in that morning and saw the panel sitting slightly askew, like it had been lifted and set back down crooked. That time I didn't chalk it up to memory. I went cold. I stared at that stupid square piece of wood for probably 2 minutes, holding the dryer door open like a shield. I didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, but I locked every single door and window in that house after that, and even stuck a broom handle in the tracks of the sliding glass door. That night I couldn't sleep. I left my TV on low and kept the bedroom door cracked. The hallway light buzzed faintly, but it was better than being in full darkness. Sometime after 2 a.m., I swear I heard footsteps downstairs. Not like a creak or the house settling, but full-on footsteps, soft, careful, but definitely there. And then nothing, just silence. I sat there in bed with my heart thudding for maybe 10 minutes before I got up and checked the hallway. It was empty. I grabbed my metal flashlight, the one we keep in the junk drawer, and crept down the stairs like I was disarming a bomb. I didn't find anyone, but the laundry room light was on. I hadn't been in there since that morning. I didn't go back to sleep. I stayed on the couch with my flashlight and a steak knife, and just waited for daylight. The next morning, I called my dad. He told me to call the non-emergency police line, maybe have someone do a walkthrough just in case. But by then, I'd already checked every room, every closet, even the attic. No one else was in the house. No signs of forced entry. No broken windows. The cops came by anyway. They were polite, but clearly thought I was being jumpy. One of them, a guy maybe my age, told me he used to get freaked out when he was home alone too. Just keep the place locked up, he said, and don't go reading creepypastas at 2 a.m. I tried to laugh, but I couldn't. That night was the last night I stayed in that house. It was around 3:30 a.m. when I woke up to a noise that I still can't describe exactly. It was like someone trying to breathe quietly while panicking. Soft, fast breaths and close by. I was on the couch again. The TV was off. I must have turned it off without remembering. The hallway was black. The kitchen was darker. And there it was again. That breath coming from behind me. I turned around and shined the flashlight. Too fast, my hand shaking. And for a split second, I saw a hand disappearing behind the far side of the couch. I screamed loud, not just startled but horrified, because this wasn't someone trying to rob me. This guy had been living in my house for days. I ran upstairs, locked myself in the bathroom, called 911 with my back against the tub and the steak knife clenched so tight in my fist that my hand cramped. The operator kept me calm. I told her someone was in the house, that I'd seen him, that I didn't know how long he'd been there. Police showed up fast. I stayed on the line the whole time. They found him in the crawl space. He'd pulled the panel shut from the inside. They had to pry it open. He was curled up behind the water heater, filthy, silent, eyes wide like a trapped animal. He didn't fight. He didn't even speak. He had a duffel bag with him. Inside it was a disposable razor, 3 granola bars, a phone charger, one of my dad's t-shirts, a USB drive, and a notebook full of handwritten notes. The notes weren't about me. They were about the house, its layouts, the time I left, the times I slept, where the vents led, what the window sounded like when opened, how long the fridge stayed open when I cooked. And there was one last page, ripped and dirty, that said, "Stay quiet, stay small, stay long." That's all. He hadn't been trying to rob me. He hadn't even been trying to leave. He planned to live there. I stayed at a friend's house the next night. I haven't been back since, not alone. My parents got home the next day and put in security cameras, but I told them I won't house sit anymore. Not unless that panel is sealed. Not unless I know, without a doubt, that I'm the only one breathing in that house. That wraps up our first story. I don't condone what he did, but I do feel for him. Living like that, hiding in walls. People don't end up there for no reason. I just hope he gets the help he needs. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. While you're here, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. It helps a lot more than you'd think. And if you've got a true scary story of your own, the links to send them to are up on the screen. This'll be our only break, so let's get back to it. I recognized the guy before he said anything. He'd sat next to me at a bonfire 6 months ago and never took his eyes off of me. Now he was parked at the bottom of my driveway. My family owns an old ranch house on 6 acres just outside of Benson, Arizona. Nothing fancy. Stucco siding, metal roof, big wraparound porch that creaks when you shift your weight. We've had the place since I was a kid, but my folks retired to Idaho last year. I stayed behind, took over the land and the bills, and honestly, I don't mind being out here alone most nights. But this happened during one of those stretches in spring where it still drops into the 40s at night. It's windy and dry with the kind of cold that makes you hear things through the walls. I work at the small feed store in town. That's where I saw him again. His name's Cole, or at least that's what he said at the bonfire. He'd been passing through with a friend, some guy with a lifted truck and a whiskey flask. We barely spoke that night, just enough for him to say he liked my boots and that I looked like I don't put up with shit, whatever that was supposed to mean. Now here he was 6 months later, standing in the feed store aisle with a bag of cracked corn and a smile like we were old friends. "Didn't expect to see you again," I said, keeping it polite. He smiled wider, "Just passing through." He paid cash. I watched him leave. And then, about an hour later, I saw his truck again, idling at the edge of my property, just past the mesquite trees that line the front pasture. He didn't come up the drive. He just sat there for a while and then drove off. I told myself maybe he got turned around or stopped to take a call. But something about it felt deliberate. Like he knew exactly where he was. Like he wanted me to know. I didn't sleep well that night. The next day was quiet. I didn't mention it to anyone. No reason to yet. I fed the goats, checked the well pump, did normal things. But when I went out to get the mail that afternoon, I found something wedged into the corner of the box. A folded up gas station receipt. It wasn't addressed to me, just crumpled like trash. But it was from the Shell station in town, timestamped that morning. The name on the card swipe was Cole M. Again, maybe coincidence, maybe litter. I burned it in the fire barrel anyway. That night I locked the doors and set the bolt on the laundry room. I even pushed the heavy wooden chair under the back door handle like we used to during monsoon storms. Around 2:40 a.m. I woke up, not from a sound exactly, more like a shift, the kind of subtle wrongness that drags you out of sleep, even if you don't know why yet. I lay there, eyes open in the dark, ears stretching into the silence, and then I heard it, a soft knock on the front door. Not loud, not frantic, just polite. I didn't move. My bedroom's at the back of the house, but the walls are thin and I swear I could feel the knock more than I heard it. Like it came from someone standing still for a long time before raising their hand. There was a second knock, same volume, same rhythm, and then nothing. I stayed in bed until sunrise. When I finally opened the door, slow, hand on my old .22 pistol, I found nothing. No car, no tracks. The wind had kicked up during the night and the porch was covered in dust and pollen. But the doormat had been brushed clean, like someone stood on it for a while. I didn't go to work that day. I started keeping the pistol loaded. I also took the padlock off the barn and moved it to the front gate. Not like it would stop someone who wanted to come in, but it made me feel better. That night I left the porch light on. I sat in the living room with my dog in my lap and the TV turned low. Nothing happened, but at 6:02 a.m., just before dawn, I found a dead jackrabbit on the hood of my truck. No blood, no obvious injury, just placed there, stiff from the cold. I called the sheriff's office after that. They sent someone out, a younger deputy named Beckett. He was nice enough, but you could tell he thought I was being jumpy. Asked if maybe a coyote dropped it there. Suggested I put up some motion lights. I didn't bother explaining the man from the feed store. Not yet. That night I didn't sleep at all. It was the next afternoon when I saw the note. I'd gone to refill the goat troughs. On my way back up the path to the house, I spotted something wedged between the boards and the porch railing. White paper, lined and torn from a notebook. It only said, "You looked lonely at the fire." That was it. My hands went cold. I walked inside, locked the door, and called the sheriff again. This time I told them everything. Beckett came back, this time with a second officer. They searched the property, walked the fence line, and even checked the tree line with binoculars. No trucks, no tracks. No sign anyone had been watching. But when Beckett asked what Cole's last name was, I had nothing. I didn't know. No one at the feed store remembered him. I couldn't find him on social. It was like he'd shown up out of nowhere and melted back into it. They told me to keep a log of anything else unusual. Beckett gave me his personal number. I asked if I could shoot someone over a note, and he said, not unless he's inside the house. That was 2 weeks ago, and I haven't seen the truck since. No more knocks, no more dead animals. But I still feel like there's a weight pressing against the edges of the property, like something is just outside the frame, waiting for me to forget it exists. And sometimes when the wind cuts just right through the eaves, it almost sounds like someone whispering on the porch. I don't think Cole was passing through. I think he was circling. And I don't think he wanted to break in. I think he wanted me to let him in. The first time someone buzzed my apartment after midnight, I figured it was a drunk neighbor pressing the wrong button. The second time, I stayed up and listened. They buzzed 3 times, waited, then buzzed again. Still no voice, no footsteps, nothing. I live in a second-floor apartment in Pittsburgh. Not a great part of town, but not the worst either. Just that middle zone of aging brick buildings, tiny corner stores with faded awnings, and the occasional siren in the distance. It's me and my mom most of the time, but she works overnights at the hospital. That week, she was pulling 4 12-hour shifts in a row, which meant I had the place to myself. I'm 17. I've been home alone plenty of times, but this felt different. The buzzers in our building are old. They don't just chime, they growl. This harsh electric buzz that vibrates through the walls. Ours is labeled 2B, and the first time it went off that night was 12:42 a.m. It startled me awake. I was on the couch half asleep watching YouTube. I figured someone hit the wrong button. Happens all the time. There's a guy downstairs who orders Uber Eats and never gives good delivery notes, so they end up buzzing everyone. But then it buzzed again, then again, then a long pause and another buzz. I didn't answer. I didn't even get up. Eventually it stopped. The next night, same time, 12:39 a.m. Buzz, pause, buzz, buzz, long wait, one final buzz. Still no voice on the intercom. I left it alone again, but this time I turned off the TV and sat in the dark, listening. I didn't hear footsteps. No one came up the stairs. No door opened. Just silence after the buzzing stopped. It was creepy, yeah, but still probably nothing. Until the third night. This time I was ready. I had kept the lights off and blinds angled just right. I left the TV off, sat in the armchair facing the front window and waited. 12:41 a.m. The buzzer growled. I stayed still, waited, then peeked through the blinds. There was a man standing on the sidewalk outside the front entrance. Not a neighbor and not a delivery guy. He was just standing there, too far back for the motion light to catch him clearly. I could barely make out his face, only a silhouette with the hood pulled up. His hands were at his sides. The buzzer went off again. Then I saw his head tilt like he was listening. I stepped away from the window. I texted my mom but got no answer. She was likely in the ER, not near her phone. I didn't call 911 because technically the guy wasn't doing anything illegal. He didn't try the door. He didn't yell or knock. Just stood there and buzzed. Eventually he walked off. The next day I told the building manager, but he shrugged, said the buzzer system's outdated and that people mess with them sometimes. I asked if the cameras caught anything. He just laughed. They haven't worked since 2018. That night I stayed in my room. I locked the door, kept my phone at 100%. I told myself I was just being paranoid. But then around 12:50 a.m., I heard soft creaking from the hallway. We've got old wood floors. Every footstep talks. One slow step, then another. It was definitely coming from inside the building. I froze. I didn't hear the buzzer that time, just those steps. Then a soft, almost polite knock. Not on the front door of the building, but on my apartment door. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. The knock didn't come again. I waited and waited. Then I heard the soft rustle of someone moving back down the hallway. I stayed up all night. The next day I told the manager again, and this time he offered to walk the halls with me. We didn't find anything. No notes, no signs of forced entry. But when I looked at the front entrance more closely, I saw that the lock plate on the outer door was scratched up, like someone had tried jamming it with something metal. The manager brushed it off. Probably the mail guy. He's rough with his keys. That night I didn't wait in the dark. I turned on every light in the apartment, pulled my desk chair in front of the door and sat with a kitchen knife in my lap. No buzz, no knock. I almost convinced myself it was over, until the next morning. I woke up around 5:30 a.m., sun barely up, city still quiet. I was halfway to the kitchen when I noticed something strange about the front door. The deadbolt was turned halfway open. I froze. My mom always locks both the knob and the deadbolt when she leaves, and I triple-check them before bed. But now the deadbolt was halfway, like someone had started to unlock it from the inside, then stopped. I checked the peephole. Nothing. I stood there shaking for maybe a full minute before I slowly opened the door. And that's when I saw a screwdriver wedged into the lower lock. It wasn't even subtle, jammed in at an angle, scratched up from torque. Whoever it was had tried to force the bottom lock and probably failed, then tried to be quieter with the top, and then either got spooked or realized I was awake. I backed into the kitchen and called 911. The cops showed up within 10 minutes. I stayed on the line the whole time, breathing like I was underwater. They didn't find anyone in the hallway or outside, but they did find fresh boot prints on the landing near my door, and a dark gray hoodie stuffed behind the radiator in the stairwell. They bagged it for evidence. One of the officers walked the block and caught sight of someone running between parked cars, but they lost him near the corner store. They didn't catch him, but they believe me now. That night, my mom stayed home. She called the landlord, had the entire lock system changed out, and made sure the deadbolt now auto-locks. She's also trying to get the building's buzzer system disabled until it can be repaired properly. I haven't slept in my room since. It's either the couch or her bed. It's been 3 days since then. No buzzing, no footsteps. But I still flinch every time I hear a sound near the door. And I keep thinking about how long he must have stood out there listening, waiting for the right moment to try the handle. I was babysitting for a couple in a gated neighborhood. It was supposed to be the easiest $80 I'd make all week. Then a man walked into the front yard at 11 p.m. and just stood there, swaying back and forth like he was listening for something. The kid was already asleep when it started. I was babysitting for a couple my mom knows through work. They're friends of friends. It was a nice house in one of those little gated neighborhoods outside the city. The kind where all the mailboxes match and everyone has 2 dogs and a ring cam. I'd babysat for them once before. Their daughter, Emma, is 6. Easy kid. Loved her iPad and grilled cheese. The parents were going to a dinner thing downtown and said they'd be back by midnight. They told me to help myself to anything in the fridge and text them if needed. I did just that around 10:58 p.m. The man came from the woods behind the house. There's a row of trees past the backyard fence, maybe 50 feet deep, and then a street that loops behind the neighborhood. I saw him through the sliding glass door. At first I thought it was a deer or maybe a neighbor's dog, but then I noticed the shape swaying. He stepped out of the tree line slowly, dragging one foot like he was limping. He had jeans on, no shirt. One arm hung stiff at his side like he'd either hurt it or forgot it was attached. Then he crossed into the yard. Not fast, but like he belonged there. I locked the back door immediately, double-checked it, pulled the curtains closed. The front of the house has this big window near the foyer that looks over the lawn. I crept around and peeked out and saw him again. He'd walked all the way around the house and was now standing in the middle of the front yard, still swaying, still watching the house. I texted the mom, "Hey, there's a guy in the yard. Do you know your neighbors?" No reply. I tried the dad too. Still nothing. I debated calling 911 right then, but I didn't know what I'd even report. The guy wasn't breaking in, wasn't yelling. He was just there, like static on a TV screen. Then he walked up the path to the porch. My stomach dropped. I stepped back into the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I could find from the block. My hands were sweating. There's a small window in the front door, one of those vertical frosted glass panes that distorts faces. I watched his shape fill it. He stood there just outside, not knocking. Then I heard his voice, muffled through the door. She said I could come in. That was a big nope for me. I texted again, now full on panicking. Someone's on the porch saying he was invited. No reply to the text, but he spoke again. Same flat tone. I'm not gonna hurt her, I just want to see her. My heart was hammering by now. I didn't know if he meant Emma or me, and either option made me feel sick. That's when I dialed 911. I whispered everything to the dispatcher. She told me to stay on the line and not engage because help was on the way. She said stay calm, stay inside, and stay quiet. I backed away from the door. The man knocked once, soft, like he didn't want to wake the kid. Then he knocked again, harder. Then he pressed his face to the frosted glass. I saw the shape of his eye, wide and erratic, darting left and right like he was trying to peer inside. He started mumbling again, broken phrases, pieces of sentences. She knows I'm here. Not gonna scream this time. Don't lock it. I said don't lock it. I moved into the hallway, clutched the knife tighter. Emma stirred upstairs but didn't come down. I'm so glad she didn't come down. The dispatcher asked if I could still see him. I peeked again. He was off the porch. Not gone, but pacing in the yard, staggering like he was too drunk to focus. He grabbed up one of the lawn chairs, tipped it, then stood it back up again, like he didn't remember what he was doing. Then the headlights came around the cul-de-sac. He bolted, just like that, ran towards the woods full sprint, stumbling into the trees the same way he'd come. By the time the two officers got to the door, he was long gone. I gave them everything I remembered, height, build, the phrases I heard. They checked the yard but didn't find anything except a dirty paper bracelet. It was one of those hospital-style ones. No name on it, just the word visitor and a blank sticker space where someone had ripped the ID off. The parents got home around 1:15 in the morning. The mom had missed my texts. She left her phone in the car. The dad was apologetic but weirdly quiet. Apparently, their backyard borders the edge of an old assisted living facility that shut down last year. Half the building's been condemned. There's still some transient traffic around there, and occasionally people wander through the woods looking for help, food, or a place to sleep. But this guy didn't seem lost. He seemed like he was looking for someone. They offered to drive me home, and I said yes. I haven't babysat for them since. I live alone in a studio apartment above a bookstore, top floor, decent part of the city even if the building's old and everything echoes like a church. I work evenings at a cafe and I'm usually home by 8 or 9. The neighborhood quiets down after that except for the buses. Anyways, last Friday night I got home around 8:30. Usual routine, keys on the hook, shoes by the door, microwave dinner in the fridge. But when I went to grab clean clothes from the closet, the door was open. Not wide, but a few inches. The only thing is I don't leave it open. I hate seeing open doors at night, especially in small spaces. It makes me feel like something's behind them. Still, I stood there for a minute trying to think if maybe I'd rushed that morning and forgot to shut it. I had been tired, running late. Maybe I grabbed a hoodie and just didn't notice. I pushed it closed, then went and locked the deadbolt on my front door. I didn't feel scared, just unsettled. The next morning I found something worse. There were 2 faint muddy smudges on the floor near my closet. Not footprints exactly, but more than dirt. Like someone stepped in, dragged a toe slightly, then backed up. I checked my shoes and all of them were dry. No tread marks that matched. I looked closer at the rest of the apartment. Nothing obviously wrong, but little things started to jump out. The power strip by my bed had been unplugged. My charger was coiled not how I leave it. The shampoo bottle was turned sideways. My toothbrush was dry and clean but moved just slightly on the counter. None of it screamed break-in, but none of it felt like me either. I called the landlord. He swore no one had been in the building. Said the only maintenance scheduled had been on the second floor 2 days earlier. I asked about lock records or keys. He said only he and I had access to my unit. I didn't press it any further. I just said thanks and hung up. That night I didn't feel safe. I dragged one of my chairs in front of the front door, not because it would stop anyone, but because I wanted to hear it fall if someone tried to come in. I left the bathroom light on and kept a kitchen knife under my pillow. I didn't sleep much that night. At 2:50 a.m. I woke up, not from a noise, just that wrong feeling. The kind that pulls you up from sleep like someone standing over you. I listened. There were no voices or footsteps. But then I heard a creak, soft and slow from the closet. I sat up. It was pitch black outside the bathroom light spilling into the room. Then I heard another sound, a breath, not mine. It was a shallow inhale, just one, like someone holding perfectly still. I grabbed my phone and called 911. I whispered everything, the noises, the open door, the mud, the breath. Dispatcher told me to lock myself in the bathroom, that officers were on the way. I started to move and then I heard it, the closet door click open, just an inch. I didn't turn to look. I didn't want to see what was in there. I backed down the hall toward the bathroom, locked the door and sat on the floor with a knife. A few minutes later, the police knocked on the door. By the time I came out, he was gone. They checked everything. The front door was locked. The closet was empty. But the window was open with the screen popped out. The fire escape ladder was still swinging slightly in the breeze. They found boot marks inside the closet, old carpet pressed down where he'd been laying, a black hoodie stuffed behind the hamper, a half-eaten granola bar, and a prepaid flip phone with no SIM card. He'd been staying in there for who knows how long. The cop said it wasn't that uncommon. People slip into buildings, find unlocked windows, test doors. Some live in crawl spaces, closets, under beds, especially in older buildings with loose security and quiet tenants. He said the guy probably waited until I left for work, slept during the day, ate from my kitchen, listened to my routines. Said he might have been there for days. I haven't gone back. My friends let me crash on the couch while I figure out what to do next. I'm changing the locks, but honestly, that doesn't feel like enough. I keep thinking about the moment I closed the closet door that first night. How close he must have been, how quiet, and how many nights I slept while someone listened 6 feet away, just behind a thin wooden door. You have been watching Neon Noir, a Radion production brought to you by Trapper Dan, the finest in canned survival food.